Hello, I'm Gabby Mendez.
And I'm Felix Kabute Jr. You are now listening to the Talk 20s podcast.
This podcast is your ultimate guide to adult life, where we discuss, with the help of our amazing guests, all the things that we were never taught in school.
Adult life can be really isolating as everyone's got their own thing going on. But remember, you're never alone. There are over 7 million of us 20-somethings all trying to figure it out. Let's unpack a new topic in today's episode. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Talk 20s podcast. If you've not already, make sure you subscribe and follow us to make sure you never miss an episode of us in the studio.
In today's episode, we're joined by Miss England 2022, also known as Jessica Gagen. I'm so excited to have you in the studio. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
It's so lovely to have you here. You're also an Aerospace Engineering student. You do loads of charity work as well, and you're a model. Like, there is so much to dive into in this episode. But first of all, you're wearing your crown today and your sash.
I am, yes.
Tell us a little bit more about what's happened to you very recently, winning the Miss England title.
Yeah, it was only about 6 weeks ago, and it wasn't my first try for going for Miss England either. So I think the first time I did it, I was kind of really hopeful, but then the second time I was like, whatever happens, happens. So I had absolutely no expectations second time around. And yeah, they crowned me winner. So that was very lovely.
Absolutely. And we're not going to make you wear your crown for the whole of today's episode. So feel free to take it off and we'll crack on with today's episode without it on. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's sparkling in person.
It's
sparkling.
super
Don't have it on camera,
sparkly.
but
Super
it's sparkling. I can
sparkly.
imagine it's quite heavy as well.
Here she is, Georgia with the box. We'll pop it away.
So Jess, for those who aren't familiar in the pageant world, that's me. I am those. I'll be honest. What does winning Miss England mean?
So I am now England's representative at the next Miss World contest.
Okay.
And I'm also, I should put a disclaimer out there, I'm also not an expert in the pageant world. I'm learning as I go. I got scouted for Miss England in 2021. So I'd never thought of doing anything like it before. And I was very apprehensive to begin because obviously unknown territory. But I really kind of worked hard and really kind of enjoyed the experience of trying to become Miss England. So this would have been my last year that I was eligible because there's obviously age requirements. And yeah, I managed to do it this year. So I just felt like I had to go back. I had to do it again. And yeah.
Absolutely. So for winning Miss England then, there's a lot that goes into the process. It's not just like a modelling contest.
No.
Tell us a little bit more about what's involved in the whole process.
So that's the thing. I was apprehensive because I thought it was that as well when I was scouted. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm not too sure. I'm not really a fan of girls being judged solely on what they look like. And I got told it's not like that anymore, because these competitions aren't televised. A lot of people have an archaic view of what they involve, and actually becoming Miss England, they're searching for a role model. So if you look at past Miss Englands, we've had doctors, we've had scientists, we've had girls from all different walks of life, and they've all got their own inspiring story and their reason for competing. So just this year, we had a girl walk down the catwalk with a catheter on show because she was trying to raise awareness of Fowler's syndrome, which is a disease that she suffers with. There was another girl who she has a prosthetic eye and she was trying to raise awareness about her condition. I know what it's called, but I don't want to mispronounce it. And then, my whole campaign was in regards to getting girls into engineering careers, and it has been for the past 2 years. But before the 2 years of competing for Miss England, I was already trying to showcase these things to women anyway, and I think that's why I was scouted, to be honest with you. So it's more than just that, and then also there's a massive charity element involved in it as well. And then obviously things like public speaking and how you present yourself, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I was quite honoured when they picked me this year.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And what's the process like then? Because did you have to were you Miss Lancashire first and then you go through to that? How does that work?
Yeah, so they hold heats.
Okay.
And then, so there's heats all around the country for different counties and stuff, and then they get narrowed down. So they're almost like a mini contest in themselves. So the first time I did it, when I won Miss Lancashire, that was like quite big on its own to win that, because there's a lot of girls involved in it. And again, all the charity work and stuff. And then there's a lot of rounds involved as well, which is how they kind of narrow it down to a winner. So they'll have, say, 10 different rounds doing different things. That one of the rounds is charity, there's a sports round and all different things. They change every year. And then the girls who do quite well in the rounds then form a shortlist. And then on the evening of the actual final, out of all of the girls who have competed, there are actually spaces for girls to go in as like a judge's pick because some girls genuinely impress and do really well on the night as well. So then when they've got their final shortlist, that's when they start narrowing it down, and it'll go to like a top 10 and then a top 5, and then the top 5 get asked a question. And then you've just got to kind of get it out on stage. You've got to be confident, and you don't know what the question's going to be. So you've just got to
What was your question then? Do you remember it?
So this year when I won Miss England, it was, what would you bring to the role of Miss England?
Okay.
Last year when I came second, it was, what's the hardest thing you've ever been through in life and how did you overcome it? And you're saying this answer in front of like 500 people on the spot. You know, there's loads of cameras on you and you're just thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get this right. I need to sound confident. I need to, you can't sound like too rehearsed. It's just one of those things. It's, how is it going to go on the night? Because it depends what question you get as well. So yeah, there's Miss Lancashire first and then qualified then for Miss England, which has its own, like 10 rounds or however many there are each year. And then, they narrow it down and crown a winner eventually.
That's a lot to go through to get to the process of winning the crown.
That's longer than some job interviews, like.
Yeah.
Alongside doing an aerospace degree, let me tell you.
Let's not forget
really
that.
hard.
Let's not forget that.
Oh, man.
Wow. But it's clear that this is something that you're passionate about, and it's so much more than just going on and just being part of the pageant and just showing your looks, what you're wearing. There's a lot that goes into it. Two things that you mentioned there was the charitable element and also the sports element. I think that's two things you're very interested in as well.
Yeah, it is. So when I originally was scouted, I think it was about the 2nd of January 2021, right at the start of the year. And I got this message on Instagram and I knew that there was a charity element involved in these things. And I thought, what on earth am I going to do? Because everything was locked down and, you couldn't interact with people. So stuff like the classic bake sales and fundraisers and brunches and stuff like that, you couldn't do it. And I was like, how on earth am I meant to raise money for charity? Like, I don't know what to do.
Got to get extra creative.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Like, I've been wanting to get back into running anyway. So I'm just going to run 5K every day for a month. And I had to wait until March to do it because...
Too cold?
No. I had to wait until March to do it because even though I was scouted on like the 2nd of Jan, I wasn't actually officially announced in the contest.
Okay.
So it would have looked a bit weird if I was just running already, like saying, oh, I'm raising money for this, but I wasn't actually involved in the contest. So I got announced in the contest. I think it was like maybe about the 20th of Feb or something. And then from the 1st of March, I set out to do it 5K every single day. And then I decided, you know what? I'll do it in fancy dress, and then started donning the nickname Fancy Dress Jess, and it just kind of blew up and went massive. So I started running around the docks 5K every single day, rain or shine. I've done it in all weathers, hailstone, like wind, rain, snow. And I was like, I'll just do 30 days. And then that 30 days, I'd extended in the end to 40 days. And then I had an accident and I hurt my knee, so I had to stop running. And I was gutted because in my head, I was trying to get to 50 days.
Yeah.
And then after that, I won Miss Lancashire and I thought, I'm going to do it again. So I did it for 8 weeks solid throughout last summer. Yeah. And then I did it again in January and then I did it again in September.
You must have some wardrobe of costumes in your house.
I have about
40 different costumes. Is it different every time?
I have about 25 outfits.
Okay.
And I put 2 outfits on my Instagram story the night before I run and let my followers choose what I run in.
Okay.
So I usually try to predict things and I'll try and put an outfit which I really want against an outfit which I don't think is going to do well. But a lot of the time, people just actually, they do me over and they pick the one I don't want to run in. So there's been a lot of times when I'll think, right, okay, today's run is going to be at this time, in this location. It's usually always around Liverpool. But I have done it in other countries as well when I've had other commitments and stuff. So I've been like, I've got to run. Like I went to Milan Fashion Week in September and I took like half of my suitcase was fancy dress. And I was like, I'm losing, not that I had much
living
street
the high
cred
fashion
anyway,
lifestyle.
but I am losing it all now. Running around Milan like dressed as Where's Wally, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But yeah.
What's your favourite outfits then? What are the ones that you want your Instagram followers to pick?
That's what I wanted to ask because I've seen you in a full-on dino costume.
Yes,
Do you know with the little
the dinosaur costume.
Everyone loves that. So That's my friend's costume that he had for, I think he had it for like a Halloween party or something. I'm not sure. But when I started running, he was like, Jess, like, I've got this outfit. Would you like to run in it? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But I was like, you're going to have to come with me though, because like I can't see, and it's 5K. It's like, it's not like a 100-meter sprint, it's a 5K run in like a full-on inflatable suit. So the first time I did that was March, and people absolutely loved it. I mean, as I say, it was still like lockdown. This is March last year. It was still lockdown, and I remember running down the waterfront and then onto the Strand in Liverpool, and I was just getting all sorts of beeps, and then people were like recording me, and then suddenly it's all over social media, and I was just like, oh my gosh, but nobody knew it was me because I was in it. So then other people are tagging, this is Jessica Ashley, this is Jessica Ashley, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like people are going to think I am absolutely crazy. I'm not, this is all for charity, but yeah, like carried it on, and as I say, I've done it quite a few times now. I don't know when the next time is going to be. But yeah, we'll see. Other outfits as well that I like. Where's Wally? Dragon. Lion, that's a good one as well. Cheerleader. Some are really easy to do. Like cat is quite easy because I'm basically just in black gym gear with a tail and like some ears and stuff. Some are really hard, as I say. Dinosaur. That was definitely quite hard, and I have to have somebody with me to do that. But otherwise, I tend to do like 90% of them on my own. Apart from in January, I teamed up with a friend and we did it together. But yeah, crazy.
So you're going to be known as Fancy Dress Jess forever.
For the rest of my life.
Literally,
I'm fine with that as well. It cheered so
stick.
many people up. And that's really what kind of kept me going the first time, because I was like, oh, I'll just do 30 days. But then within that, I mean, now I've done like 149 fancy dress runs.
Wow.
Which is crazy over the course of like 18 months. But yeah, like it kept me going because I knew people were waiting to see it on their socials because there wasn't much happening with it being lockdown. So I used to get people messaging me at like 3 PM going, are you not going for your run today? And I'd be like, yeah, let me finish work. Let me finish work. I promise you I will go. And I'd post my my Strava map every day as well, so people could see that I'd gone, and I'd take a picture in front of some kind of Liverpool landmark, so they also knew that I'd definitely done it. So
no cheating. No cheating allowed.
That's amazing, because when I think back to lockdown, like running was kind of the only thing you could do. So it really allows the people who may not be able to get out and run themselves, but feel as if they're out there with you, supporting you and everything. It's actually really amazing, and all for a good cause as well.
Yeah, I know. I've done it for 6 different charities now, in total, within the region of about £6,500 raised. So I actually can't wait to do the next time. And it's not just running as I've done as well. Like I've climbed mountains, bike rides, I've jumped into the docks in February. I've done all sorts of stuff. So I need to think of new ideas now. I'm running out, but I'll think of some.
I feel like we're going to have to add like adrenaline junkie to like the massive list of things. Like these are crazy things. But in all these things that you do, would you say there's anything that you learn or take away from them when you're doing them?
I think persistence and, you know, the importance of turning up, because you don't realise how many people are watching you. And it, as I say, it really cheered a lot of people up. So in my head, I set out and sometimes I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go. And I would always go. I wouldn't like let myself down. But then it became apparent how much it was meaning to other people. As I say, I was getting messages. People were saying, oh, my daughter has voted for this outfit. I really hope that you get it. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't happen this time, because I don't choose, you know, I'm sure in the future it'll run. And sometimes like I'd put an outfit up for a vote. I think it was Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz just didn't get picked like 4 times on the run. And I was getting like different parents messaging me like, oh, I really hope you can run as Dorothy. And I was like, you know what? I won't do the vote this one day. I'll run as Dorothy for you. And then like you'd see like the donations flooding in because I'd done that especially. So yeah, I think the big takeaway is like you don't actually realise how it is affecting other people. Even if they're not donating, it's cheering them up. And that's what I love. I love doing it.
So yes, Gabby, as you know, this is the part of the podcast where we talk a little bit more about our headline sponsor, Zopa Bank.
The world feels a little bit uncertain right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
But I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about in this ad section was, even though everything seems uncertain, that we should all still be thinking about our future and saving. Like, I'm a big advocate for saving, even in, you know, tricky times, because future you will always thank you for that.
Yeah, 100%. I always say, do the things your future you will thank you for. And I think saving definitely falls under that.
And even though everything seems uncertain right now, it's best to be prepared for it. So whether you're a freelancer, you're starting your own thing, or you're in like a normal 9-to-5 job, it's important to get some savings behind you, because they act as like an element of like security, you know? So building up a pot of money is super important to lean on in those times of difficulty.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to talk to you about an amazing thing that my amazing friend Laura Moore, she's a money and mindset coach.
Oh yeah, I know Laura.
Yeah. Well, Laura told me about this Zopa Smart Saver account, where basically you can have lots of different saving goals within one account. You only need like £1 to start, and I think you can save up to like £85,000, which would be nice. But yeah, so it's an account where essentially you can put all your savings in one place, but you can split it into different pots, which is what I love the most about it.
That sounds so interesting, but I'm just wondering, how does that work? Because whenever I've created a savings account, you know how it gets. It might be a rainy day. How do I then access that money, especially when I am saving for a rainy day?
Well, I think what's really important is that lots of different savings accounts can sometimes, have like a fixed period on them or whatever. But the best thing about Zopa is that you can have like boosted pots. For example, you said you're saving for a rainy day, or like me, like I always want to make sure I've got a little bit of money just in case my car breaks down. So for an emergency fund, you would want a pot that you can access straight away. But you still want to earn a good interest rate on that, which you can do through the Zopa app. But say, for example, you have a different savings goal that is like saving for a holiday. Well, you don't have to open a different account for that. You can still have it in the same account, but put it into a different pot. And the best thing about it is you can boost those pots so that you can earn a higher interest rate on that pot. But what you do when you boost a pot, you have to then give a notice period. And these can range from like 7 days to 95 days. And the higher that you go, the more interest that you get. So for example, I might be saving for a holiday. I might choose a higher interest rate and boost that pot, but then I would have to give my 7 days notice or 31 days notice prior to wanting to have access to that money. So it's really good because it allows you to be flexible with your savings and have different pots for different goals.
I see. This definitely sounds like the vibe. What did you say it's called? The Zopa Smart what?
Yeah, the Smart Saver on the Zopa app. I think you can just download it from the App Store.
Zopa Smart Saver. I've got it here on the App Store.
We definitely need to tell you that all boosted pots are subject to a notice period, the longest of which is 95 days for the highest interest rate. And you need to save a minimum of £1, and the interest is paid monthly and is subject to variation.
That's so amazing.
You're an incredible human being, but you also study aerospace engineering. What excited you, or what made you want to study STEM?
So I've always been very interested in science and maths throughout school. Like I always loved it. And weirdly enough, it was actually modelling, which I know that sounds weird, which kind of persuaded me to go into engineering, because I went into modelling full-time after my A-levels. And then a few years down the line, decided actually I am going to do a degree, which I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, because I do want to bring it up later in the podcast, but the reasons why I did that. But I decided, you know what, yeah, I would like to get a degree, but I really didn't know what to pick. And I took a step back and I thought, right, what do I like about modelling? And it was essentially variety, working with teams of people in different locations, international job opportunities. And I thought, what other career could give me that? And engineering was it. And I knew that there was obviously job progression there. There was an opportunity to make good money, but also it was an industry where I would be wanted, providing obviously I got the grades and had the soft skills along with the hard skills. I just thought I want to kind of ensure myself and go into an industry where I'm going to be needed, and we're always going to need engineers, we're always going to need doctors. And that's why I thought, right, I'll go down the engineering route. That sounds like a bit of me. It's actually quite hard.
I was going to say,
hey,
it's very
science.
hard. Remember, Ben West was on that very sofa saying how hard he found aerospace engineering. So I know it's not easy at all. And I've got some friends that studied engineering, aerospace engineering, can't even say it, let alone study it. But I know it's something that like it's quite demanding in terms of like you need to be very studious. And,
it is really intense, yeah. And to be honest with you, I think lockdown kind of helped me because during that time, obviously people weren't working and there was more kind of your own time. Like, and my modeling career just kind of like just stopped during lockdown. So I didn't have anything taking me away from the degree. So I'm on an integrated master's degree in aerospace engineering. I've already done the 3-year bachelor, can't even say it, bachelor element of it. And while I'm Miss England, I've took this year out as like a break, and then I'll be going back to do the masters. I had actually started it. I'd done like 8 weeks of it, and then I won Miss England, and I was like, how do I do both at the same time? Because Miss World next year is like a month-long contest, and then all the prep for it, and then different trips which I've been asked to go on, and then different events. And I spoke to university, and they actually advised me. They said, we think you should suspend because you can't put all of your effort in, and it is so intense. It really is. It's like a full-time job plus overtime, and you don't get paid for it. Yeah.
I can literally relate to what you're saying in terms of like having to do a master's, but then it's not the right time. Because I, very similar to you, I had to suspend my master's, and I've only just graduated from it like last week.
Oh, well done. Congrats.
But it's like you said, compared to the pandemic when I started it, and I almost had the gift of time, too much time. When it came to juggling and, you know, a full-time job, it just wasn't possible to do. But there's no such thing as perfect timing, right?
Yeah,
And we can even say that's the case in when you decided to actually go to university, because some people would say that going to university at a later age, they're a mature student. I'm not even too keen on that term, but it doesn't even matter what time you go to university. I feel as if often when we go through the education system, we're just kind of ushered towards the university path when that might not be the right path for everyone. So for those people who are maybe thinking about going to university a little bit later on in their life, what would you advise them?
I think definitely wait. Even if people are thinking about going now, obviously I'm not saying you should do this or you should do that, but definitely take a step back, because I know for a fact if I went and studied aerospace engineering at the age of 18 or anything at the age of 18, I'd have crashed and burnt, because I stressed so much during my A-levels because I'd never had like life experience. And I think it's really important to kind of realize what's important in life. And at the time for me, it was only academia. So I didn't do as well as I wanted to in my A-levels. And for me, it felt like the end of the world. And having took a step back and then really had a thought about what I wanted to do in life and the things I wanted to get out of life really benefited me, because I've enjoyed all of my degree. Don't get me wrong, there's elements which are really hard, and I've been like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How have I even made it this far? How have I even got an aerospace engineering degree? Like, I don't know how that's happened. But I do think it's really important, to take a step back and also do things according to your own plan, because I think there is a bit of a stigma about going late. I thought personally, people thought, oh, Jess has failed at something, or Jess, her plan hasn't gone how she wanted it to. And I always felt like I was subject to those stigmas. And a lot of the time, you're not. People aren't bothered, but it's like your own mental demons that you're having to battle. So I would say, you've only got one life, and whether it takes you 10 years to get a qualification or 2 years, like, nobody knows. That's just on your CV. And who's bothered anyway if it takes you longer? Like, we've all got different things happening in our lives. We've all been dealt a different hand of cards. And I'd say just do things according to when it feels right. And for me, like, starting my degree at the age of 24 was spot on. I definitely couldn't have done it when I was 18. So I'm glad
I think that's such a good point. I've always looked at like the mature students on my course, and I've always looked at them with almost admiration, because they're just so focused. It's almost like they know the value of that degree and their life experience as well. They know they're coming to get that degree and put it to purpose, So
I've said a few times to some of the guys in my class that, like, if I ended up with like a 2-1 MEng overall, like, I'd be over the moon. Now, I was always that A-star student in school. I only ever wanted top, but having the life experience has made me like realize actually what employers are looking for. And essentially, like, before the grade, they want in the soft skills. They're wanting somebody that can talk, somebody that's friendly, somebody that can network and basically is willing to learn. And those things are more important than having the top grade. Like, there's plenty of people. I mean, I've been told by quite a lot of recruiters and different people I'm in contact with in the engineering industry who've got in contact with me from big establishments because I've won Miss England, and they've said, don't worry about, getting like a first. Like, all of your life experience plus a 2-1 is so beneficial. And I've said to some of the guys as well, like, being in university, weirdly enough, isn't my everything. And I say guys because 90% of my class are guys. But I'll say to like the guys in class, like, this isn't my everything. I understand for you, it is because you've only ever been around academia your whole life. And that was the same for me. But this for me is an extra. I actually have a job. Like I'm a model. Like I have to think about who's paying the bills, which is me. So that's my first and foremost. And the degree's like the extra. So yeah, you really do look at it in a different way and realize what's important and how important it is to get a certain grade. And yeah, definitely interesting.
Great point.
Absolutely. You are the first Miss England to be a redhead.
I am indeed.
I find that crazy that we've never had a redhead win Miss England before.
I know.
Like, what? Why not? That's just...
It baffled me.
Yeah.
I genuinely had like no idea about this until when I was doing the competition last year. So the first time I did it. I had quite a few people saying, you know that there's never been a ginger win Miss England? And I was like, what? Surely, like in the whole time this has been going, there must have been a ginger win Miss England. And yeah, they apparently never did. And then this year as well, like I got like the director and then like some of the local heat organisers saying, you know, oh yeah, we've never had a redhead win before. And I'm like, surely not. Like surely some point in history. But I mean, yeah, from everything I've checked and everything I've been told, apparently there's only been me. So
for you then, because I know I've got a lot of people in my life who are redheads. They will often tell me that, you know, in school, it was just something that they could be used against them to tease them. And I have absolutely no idea why the colour of someone's hair should be a reason to tease anyone. But you've spoken a little bit about this in saying that, you know, you were teased when you were younger for being a redhead and kind of, I saw a phrase that was used, like using your pain to raise your game. And I thought I loved that because I was like, being teased when you're younger for something has actually made you strong enough to go somewhere and then be the first person to ever win Miss England as a redhead. So for you, looking back at those younger years, what do you take from that?
I look at that person and I feel a bit upset for her. Like if I put myself back in that position, like I remember coming home from school and crying. And this wasn't necessarily because kids were being malicious, because I think a lot of the time they're not. I think a lot of the time kids are trying to get laughs from other kids. There's a social hierarchy in high school. And I used to just think, what's wrong with me? Like I've been born like this and I've been dealt this, you know, say a bad hand of cards. I mean, I had really crooked teeth and I was really lanky and just obviously you're changing a lot when you're in like your like 12, 13, 14, stuff like that. And I look back at that person and I admire the strength that she had to just kind of grin and bear it, because the way I deal with things, I'm not saying this is the way to go about, you know, your life, is I bottle things and I kind of try to leave things in the past. So when the stories about me being picked on in school surfaced in, I think it was like April time, I was actually really, really upset because it took me straight back to that moment. And a lot of people think I approached the press, but it wasn't. A press release got sent out and then the press approached me. And I agreed to do this interview and basically told people that, you know, you can use the pain to raise your game. I was very educated and wise at the time. I realised that kids weren't doing it to be malicious, even though it was affecting me. And I thought if I shut off my emotions and I don't show people that this is affecting me, they won't see this as like a weakness and I'll just kind of embrace it kind of thing. Like I always liked my hair and I was only ever contemplating dyeing it for other people. And then I thought, oh my gosh, if they then carry on picking on me, then I'll hate myself even more. So yeah, I really admire that young girl who kind of grinned and bared it and just kind of went through it. And then, yeah, as I say, like it's still a weird topic to talk about because I did kind of shut everything off and then for everything to surface in like April time. And I thought when I originally did the first press interview, I mean, I only did one for a press agency and it went massive. I thought it was just going to end up in like a local paper, which to be fair, I think everybody did. And my whole reason for telling the story is that a bad chapter doesn't last till the end of the book. So my like, I'm not sure how to say it. My story, I told it as, you know, yes, I was picked on when I was in school. There was the odd time when it was malicious, but most of the time, I don't think it was. And I don't want other kids to think of their going through this same thing, it's going to happen forever. You know, it won't. It didn't for me. I had loads of good times in school, but, you know, it did kind of like get me down, and I wasn't very confident right the way through kind of high school kind of thing, but participating in sports and stuff like that. And then eventually getting a group of friends when I was in about year 9, it really did bring out confidence. I was assistant head girl, as I say, sportswoman of the year, and I got 10 A's and A stars, and I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not kind of put things aside and just kind of just embraced how I looked. And yeah, I kind of told the story that way. Now the papers only want to tell the negatives.
Of course.
And that's what really affected me, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I was getting backlash for it as well. People were accusing me of having all sorts of surgery. People were accusing me of lying, because they only saw like the 1 or 2 pics that the papers printed of me when I was a little girl. So it was really hard. But having that story out there has empowered so many kids going through the same things. Like, I've had so many parents contact me. And I mean, I got interviewed on This Morning, and it was such a good response from that, because it brought it to light what redheads go through. Like, a lot of people call it the last acceptable form of bullying, because some of the things, I mean, I've had things said to me and I've thought, oh my gosh, if you said that to anybody else about anything else, there would be a kick-off, like people wouldn't be happy. But because you're in such a minority, people think it's okay. So yeah, it was definitely hard when that story came about. I was very upset because, as I say, we didn't really think it was going to go massive, but there you go.
I mean, your personal characteristic there is like your red hair, but of course, I think what you've said applies to so many other different characteristics as well. You know, people's race, people's ethnicity, people's faith, so many different things. I think we call them the protective characteristics. But I think if they're able to apply what you've said in terms of staying true to themselves, that can really help them through as well. And I hope that you continue to be like the advocate you are and the example, and hopefully we can see a lot more diversity as well in the Miss England, Miss World competitions as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Miss England's fantastic for that anyway. Like, they encourage ethnic minorities to get applying anyway. I mean, so the girl who won the year before me, she has Kenyan heritage, and the girl who won before her has Indian heritage. So there's a lot of that already, which is fantastic. But yeah, I do think it's really important to kind of like show up, represent, and just talk about these things which do affect you. As I said, it wasn't my idea. I mean, I didn't originally go to the press. Like, so it's the director of the competition who she knew I'd been teased on, and she created this press release and sent it, and then I had the press agency call me. And as I say, we just thought it was going to be kind of like a local interview, which I could then, like take into schools and be like, okay, this is what I went through, and you're not alone. But it blew up internationally. Like, I was in the news all over the world. And as I say, I was interviewed on different TV shows in the UK, but then also lots of TV shows from different countries were taking videos from my Instagram and like YouTube or whatever they could find and creating their own like report on me.
Is that not really strange?
That's how it goes.
So weird.
Wow.
Like, I've got a lot of followers from Italy because I've worked in Italy since I was like 19, and I was getting followers send me like videos of their TV. Oh, you've just been on the telly, and I was like, are you sure it was me? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And they record this video and send it to me, and I'd be like, whoa, this is wild. Like, this has gone like wildfire. Like, literally, like Australia, Mexico, Korea, like Russia, like all over the world. I was in the news.
Gone global
because of my hair color.
Wow.
I was like, this is mental.
I've got to ask, you've now gone global with this. Did any of the people that used to bully you ever like get into contact and say, like, well done, congratulations? Did that ever come up? Or
no? I think a lot of the time as well. So I don't like using the word bully because I feel like there's a lot of people think of that and they think, oh, shoved into a locker and beat up behind like the schoolyard or something like that. For me, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like a set person. I mean, there's people that come to mind instantly who I think of as kind of like the main kind of culprits who made me feel upset. But a lot of the time, as I say, it's kids having laughs with their friends. And I think a lot of the time, a lot of kids don't realise the weight of their words. And they also don't realise like what they've said. It's a passing comment to them. So like I can literally recite anything like that because for me, it was like traumatic at the time. And it was it was having a big impact in my life. Whereas, yeah, for that kid walking past who's just saying something, like, that's nothing to them. Like, I remember a girl holding up a coat in front of the aisle that I was in on the bus. I was the only girl sat behind this coat, and she just turned around and said, only pretty girls in front of the coat, and hung it up. And I was feeling really self-conscious at the time anyway, because I was going through my orthodontic treatment and I didn't have the normal train threats to begin. I had big block retainers, so I couldn't even close my mouth properly. So I was really self-conscious of that. I had my big red glasses and ginger hair. I was lanky. So I just felt like just the oddball. And then for her to hang that coat up and then say only pretty girls, I just remember getting really upset on the bus. Now, I wouldn't put that in the category as bullying. I would say that's her trying to get laughs from my friends and, you know, definitely kind of picking on me a little bit. But that's the thing, like, I don't know. I think so many people have got connotations with the word bullying. I mean, there was times when, yeah, it definitely comes under that umbrella. But that's the thing, I say, like, a lot of kids don't realise, I don't think, the power of their words, the weight of what they're saying. So hopefully by like talking about it a bit more, it will really kind of make other people think, or make younger kids think about what they're saying.
I'm sure that was a passing comment for that girl, but what she didn't probably realise is she was saying it to the future Miss England.
Literally.
Yeah, I mean, it still baffles me that I'm Miss England now. But as I say, there's loads of different things which even happen like into my 20s. I remember during lockdown, I went to work in Asda. So that was where I worked when I was in college. And then I went back because obviously nobody knew what was happening. And I remember a guy saying to me, do you realise you're the lowest of the low in society because you've got red hair? And I was like, what? Where did that come from? Like, I pulled him to a side and I said, you wouldn't say that to anybody else about anything else. So why do you think it's okay to say it to me? And he was like, oh, I'm just having a laugh. And I said, I know you are. I said, I'm not offended. I said, because I understand that you're not educated, like in regards to how this topic makes me feel and makes other kind of redheads who are in this tiny group feel. I said, I understand that you're not being malicious. I said, I'm here now to talk about it and educate you. Like, that's not nice. And he was like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. And I was like, I know. I said, to you, it genuinely is a joke, but there are weight in your words. And I've now got the confidence to stand up. I couldn't have said that in school. I'd have just kind of took it on the chin. And then at the end of the day, you know, the bottle overfills and then I'd have this big kind of breakdown when I get home from school kind of thing. And like, I'm not now preventing that from happening. It won't happen again because I've got the confidence. But as I say, like talking about it and pulling people up on it will help to solve the problem. I hope so anyway.
Your resilience and positivity is amazing. And I even feel like it was built up from that little girl till now. It's actually so amazing. I think we'll get back into it a little bit later on. But let's look at the present and the future. What's the next steps for you? Is Miss World on the cards?
Yeah, Miss World, yeah. And what's crazy is I keep getting kind of like singled out by different pageant fan accounts, which I didn't even know existed until recently. A lot of them are predicting me to be like top 10 or top 5. I had one predict me win it the other day, and this account's got like 30,000 YouTube subscribers. And I've looked at other things that they've predicted in the past, and they've always had results there or thereabouts. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm flattered. Like, I got predicted twice yesterday. One predicted me to come 5th, one predicted me as 3rd. And I'm just like, this is Jess from Skelmersdale we're talking about here. Like,
we might be sat opposite the future Miss World. We don't know.
Imagine, they've also apparently never had a redhead win that. And as it stands this year, unless any of the girls dye their hair, and I mean, there are still a few
they're
girls.
They're not natural then.
No, they're not natural. Unless any of the girls dye their hair, and there are still a few contestants yet to be announced. As it stands, I'm the only redhead in it so far, which is wild.
You really could make history.
Yeah, that would be crazy. As I say, I don't expect anything. I'm going for the experience. I'm going to enjoy myself, meet people, just immerse myself in the moment. But that is going to be wild if that happens. And the thing is, like, so many opportunities can arise from this competition. Like, everybody's heard of it, whether like you watch it or not. Like, I grew up not watching it, but I knew what it was and I'd heard of it. And there's so many successful people who've come from these platforms and you don't even realise. Like, it's crazy. So you don't have to win. You can do a lot without winning. So I'm just honoured to be able to go.
Yeah. That's the best way to go into something sometimes. Go in expecting nothing. Yeah. Leave gaining everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, anything I get from it is a positive. I don't expect anything. So as I say, just the opportunity and getting to meet people, like, I just love that.
Great mentality.
Well, one of the things we like to discuss a little bit on the podcast as well, with it being all about your 20s, is we like to talk about failure sometimes, and that how it's totally okay to fail in your 20s. We like to chat about the fact that, like, although you may have won Miss England and you're going on to feature in Miss World, that absolutely no one is perfect, and we're all working through something or another behind the scenes that maybe other people don't know about. So for you, is there anything that you're working on at this moment in time that you're trying to perhaps get better at or improve or work on for yourself that you could maybe share with our listeners?
I can definitely say that I need to work on not taking on board people's opinions, because people, especially when you're in like the media and you're out there for like the masses to say, you can't win. So, and for me, I've always been the kind of person who's so bothered about what people think. And I'd love to say that I'm not that person now, but it would be a lie. Like, it does affect me. Like, I always want to be liked. I'm that kind of person. And so if for whatever reason I have an inclination that somebody, you know, is a bit hostile towards me, that could genuinely be they've had a bad day. It could be nothing to do with me, but I will blame myself. So that is something I genuinely really need to work on, is just kind of be like, you know what, in life, like stop worrying about what people think. Just live your own way. So I don't know, I'd love to say that's a New Year's resolution, but I don't really know how to get over that one. But I've got plenty of stories of failure, which I can dig right into if you'd like to.
Go on then, tell us a little bit about your failures.
So a lot of people, they see the aerospace degree and they see this modelling career, this international modelling career, winning Miss England, and they think, oh gosh, you've got no idea, kind of thing. You've got absolutely no idea. And one thing I touched on before was me doing my degree, and I said, oh, well, we'll come to it a little bit later about what kind of made me do it. And basically, when I was about 20, 21, I noticed a shift in the commercial modelling industry. Instagram had become massive, and a lot of clients were booking influencers for campaigns and girls who looked like influencers. And I was always typically, English Rose did not look like an influencer at all, didn't have that kind of sassy vibe kind of thing. Like, I've always been kind of quirky, bit geeky. And I just started not booking work. And it was really scary for me because I was only modelling at the time. And I was like, what do I do? And at the same time, I was also in a long distance relationship. So I was always spending a lot of money going to see like my boyfriends at the time. And I remember thinking, right, I need to have like a constant, I need to earn money. So I had like a few kind of like little jobs here and there, but they always used to clash with modelling when it did come up. So I was like, I need to get something which is like completely not going to clash. So I started working as a hotel receptionist on nights, and I was working nights and then modelling in the daytime. And I used to, there was a lot of things like you can experience as a hotel receptionist on the night shift. Like there's a lot of funny stories, but there's also like some scary stories. I remember being the only like employee in the hotel, and like this guy coming in and threatening me. And I was genuinely like fearful, like for my life kind of thing. Like I remember another colleague from a different hotel, which was literally around the corner, coming in, and this guy's like squaring up to him. And I was like behind this reception desk thinking, what is going on? Like, I don't know. And then my relationship started to break down as well. And I remember my ex-boyfriend saying, you know, like, I'm worried about you, you know, like, where are you headed in life? I feel like your path isn't going the direction you want it to go down, but you also don't know what direction you want it to go down. And I remember taking a step back this one evening when I was on nights and just bursting out crying and thinking, I need to remove myself from this reception desk because this is kind of unprofessional. People can't see me like this. But then for months, I used to go into work every night and just cry because in my head, it made me think, oh my gosh, like, what do other people think of me? I was very academic in school, got all these A's and A stars, and I was thinking, I'm not happy where I am right now, but I also don't know how to utilize these things because I've got things to pay for now. You know, I'm in my 20s, but I also don't want to give up my modelling career to do a degree. And I was so lost. And then my relationship did break down. So I remember just being sat in this hotel thinking, what am I doing? Like, I felt like I was caught in a trap because I took on this job to have extra money to be able to go afford to go and see this ex-boyfriend at the time, because it was long distance and it was getting quite expensive. And suddenly, because of the change in modelling, I wasn't modelling anymore, which is what I'd worked so hard to do since I was 15. So yeah, that was kind of, that had stopped. And then I didn't have a higher education, so I couldn't apply for graduate roles even if I wanted to. Didn't matter about the soft skills. It didn't matter about my previous academia. I didn't have a higher education qualification. So I was like, what do I do? And I remember, just like crying my eyes out thinking, I haven't got any money coming in. And, you know, I was living at home, and don't get me wrong, like I've got the most supportive parents, like they're always there for me and they would never kind of kick me out. But I just felt like I couldn't be around anybody because I was this big failure and it was all in my head. And then, it took me taking a step back and not thinking about what other people might think of me and thinking, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And as I say, like the whole time doing my degree, in the back of my head, I always thought, oh, people are going to think, oh, you know, she's failed at modelling, she's failed at this, and she's gone now because her original plan didn't work out. But sometimes life deals you cards and you just can't help what comes up. Like that was never the plan. It was never meant to kind of go bad. But then, I mean, this year's been fantastic for modelling. I've modelled all over the world this year. Like it swings and roundabouts, it does change. But at the same time, I'd not long started my degree and then the pandemic happened. And for me, it gave me purpose. And then, as I say, during the pandemic as well, I went back to work in Asda, and I used to do my shifts from 2 a.m. till 11 a.m. And so literally I was like a zombie. And I used to like think so much. Like I'd see people who I went to school with and I'd think, oh my gosh, like what are they going to think of me? Like, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like working in retail or anything like that. For me, I just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I used to see these other people who'd gone off and got higher education and think, oh my gosh, they're going to think low of me. They probably weren't. They probably weren't bothered. But in my head, I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to think low of me because I've always strived for perfection and it's so unattainable. So I've had like this up and down journey, which people don't actually know about.
Absolutely.
Like, as I say, like working as a night's receptionist, crying my eyes out, getting threatened, like absolutely crazy stuff along the way. And people only see like the modelling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's been times where I've had like no money in my bank account and I don't know how I'm going to afford to pay like for my car payment or something. And I'm just so worried. And it used to just like,
it's the reason why we do this podcast, because often once we scratch the surface with a lot of people that we're speaking to, we find that this is the case, that they haven't had an easy journey, but they have had a great year, for example, like you, in your situation. And I think that's the most important thing about talking about your 20s is that, you know, everything that we see on social media is always super positive, but like scratch the surface and people will be having all different sorts of challenges as well. So
yeah, and that's one of the things which kind of Fancy Dress Jess actually helped almost cure, because as I say, this my whole life I was more so bothered about what people thought of me as opposed to what I was achieving or what money was in the bank. I'm not saying they're the things you should strive for, but yeah, I was only ever focused on what other people thought. Like for years, I'd hit modelling milestones, which I could only have dreamt of as a 13-year-old. And as soon as I got them, I didn't kind of stop and enjoy them. It was like, I've done that, next one, because I was so bothered about what people thought about me. So when I did Fancy Dress Jess, having had all this life experience and realising, you know, essentially, first and foremost, I need the money to pay the bills. But then after that, like people's lives change all the time. Like, you know, you could have an accident and your life changes like that. Or, you know, you could be dealt a hand of cards. Something could change which is out of your control. And so you've got to adapt. When I did Fancy Dress Jess, like it really did help me, because I was just running around the city in fancy dress, looking like an absolute crazy person. And people started really liking me for that, because it was like, this girl actually doesn't care what people think of her. And in the back of my head, I really did. I used to think, oh my gosh, like people are going to think I'm like crazy. But it really did help me because it made me realize like what's important. Like there was so many people when I started doing that who were starting to kind of cast judgment. A lot of it was good, but you get the, you know, the odd people who think, oh, she's so annoying. And in the past that would have always affected me. But I was like, you know what? The bigger thing here is I'm raising money for charity and I'm raising a lot. So I'm going to carry on. And it's really helped me. Like I'm more confident and I care less now about what people think. So
Amazing. I think that adds perfectly onto what you said earlier about what that experience taught you.
yeah.
Jess, your journey is amazing. Your growth is inspiring. I wanted to ask you what piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self, but I feel like you've already given so much. But just to round things up, and I feel like the advice you would give to your 20-year-old self, I think it can help so many other people around that age.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self?
I would say, and I say this all the time in regards to my 13-year-old self, but a bad chapter doesn't necessarily have to last till the end of the book. Enjoy all the moments that you can while you're having them. Like, whether they're good or bad, like, kind of just appreciate them. I know that sounds weird to appreciate a bad moment, but appreciate what's happening, because life is always going to change and you will get there in the end. Some people, like, they get what they want first time. Others have to fight. I've always had to fight for what I wanted. Like, again, even signing to modelling agencies. I think people think, oh, she just walked into a modelling agency one day and got signed. I've been turned down by over 20. Easily. I've been turned down by agencies I'm now signed with because I went back. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, I think expect failure and expect to work hard, and you will get through it.
Thank you, Jess. You've been an amazing guest. It's been so lovely to chat to you today, and good luck for Miss World.
Thank you.
I really
Thanks for
hope it goes
having
well for
me.
you.
Honestly, like, it's an honour to come on. Like, it's such a good podcast. So thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. Yeah.
A big thank you to you, yes you, for tuning into this episode of the Talk 20s podcast.
We hope it inspired you in some way and popped a little pep in your step for this week.
Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. It means a lot to us to have your support.
We also love hearing your stories and suggestions. You can reach out to us on all socials by searching at Talk20s.
Lastly, before we go, our website, talk20s.com, is the hub for all things 20-somethings. Go check it out, my people.
Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.